Socialist dictator Nicolas Maduro wins Venezuelan elections again after rigging them in his favor. Is exactly what we knew the United States would say, because they literally say this after every single Venezuelan election. I'm just gonna go ahead and start off this conversation by letting you know that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world and the United States doesn't have access to it. Probably also important to know that CIA asset Corina Machado, opponent of Maduro, Gonzalez, promised to open up the markets to multinational corporations that would of course favor the United States. Also, let's not forget that the same people that are claiming that Maduro rigged the election now and that every vote should count and that they have to protect Venezuela's democracy tried to anoint Juan Guaido, who wasn't even respected in his own party, let alone Venezuela, just a few years ago. So before you go and post debunked propaganda like this, only to get community noted like this, maybe you should hear some of the facts before you go embarrassing yourself. Some of you all might not know this, but once upon a time, Jimmy Carter actually said Venezuela has some of the most secure elections in the world. Since that time, Venezuela's elections have only become more secure by necessity, because otherwise you leave yourself open to having your elections rigged by the United States and the West. So Venezuela actually has to make their elections secure in case of a situation like Bolivia, where the United States does successfully overthrow the government. They can actually vote their way back in power because of how secure their elections actually are. For example, here, Fiorella Isabel, an election integrity expert that's actually been to Venezuela to inspect their elections, discusses how they have to use biometrics in order to make sure that no one gets to vote more than once. And they even audit automatically 54% of the votes after they're taken, and that audit has to match. Everything has to match, from paper ballots to electronic ballots, 100% before they proceed, which is more than what we can say for the United States. Beyond that, each party is given an encrypted key that they have to use to verify the ballots before there can be declared a winner. So while there may be people bitching on social media about how there are people questioning the results, the opposition party and the other parties already certified the results. They've already done it. Another great way for us to figure out if the integrity of elections should come into question is to see if the president is representative of the legislative body, which of course is picked by the people in the localities of any given country. Maduro's party holds 256 seats out of 277. Once again, this is very similar to Bolivia. They claim that Evo Morales did not have a majority support of the country, but in actuality, the legislative body was filled with the majority of his party members. So when there was an election held after the coup in Bolivia, a member of Evo Morales' party won, because that was always the popular party. He was always the popular candidate, and those policies were popular in the country. Oh, and by the way, once again, did I mention that Venezuela has the largest supply of crude oil in the world, and the US doesn't have access? So come on, guys. You cannot like the president, you cannot like socialism, but you don't have to scream fraudulent election every single time you don't like a candidate. It delegitimizes legitimate cases of election fraud. Beyond that, it makes you look kind of goofy, because you got a bunch of Republicans right now quoting propaganda from the Democratic administration, just like you had Democrats quoting propaganda from the Trump administration last time with Juan Guaido. So I don't know if y'all realize this, but you look crazy. Get it together.